Good morning, LinkedIn. Happy Friday. Welcome to Let's Build Daily. I'm your host, Chris Carolin, with a special guest today, Alexia. How are you doing today?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. I wanted to have you on just because you're the first person I've met who is actively in charge of both HubSpot and an ERP. We met a few months ago in the Sprocketeer community
hmm
and been talking about all this change related to HubSpot and how they're expanding beyond, marketing and sales, and orders are coming into play. And what does this mean for the integration into other business systems, stuff like that. So you've been super awesome in sharing your story with me. And I thought some other people might get some value out of that story too. So thanks for coming on today.
All right. What help?
So if you could, just kind of who you are, what do you do, and maybe how you got there.
Sorry. So let's see. I'm a very um, observant person, and a lot of the times when I'm in a position, I will find all the little things that are wrong and how to make them better. And obviously, you can't right out the bat, suggest improvements. So a lot of times it's acquiring all the knowledge I can in order to be able to suggest improvements. And so anywhere I've been, it's been mostly me changing things up from my first job all the way till now. So I started at the apps company. It'll be 5 years in October as order entry, basically order processing, and everything was paper 5 years ago. So it was uh, it was a bit of a shock to me, but having been working with all kinds of technology since early 2000s. So one of my first uh, things was to try to make my job easier, less paper, less entry, because we were entering things multiple times. And long story short, we moved to a different platform. We streamlined everything. There's no more paper. But then we decided that we saw that inventory was not really being used, being keeping they were keeping track of inventory via spreadsheets. So we needed to make sure that we find a way to handle our inventory properly. And so that led me down the path of looking for a piece of software to help us with that. And we stumbled upon Zohosoft and ERP, and I was the one to bring it up, and we implemented it. And then the next thing was to change up our website and went to Shopify. And then my marketing director came to me and said, "We don't have a good marketing system right now, and we don't like what we have. We're not using it right. So let's find a new marketing system, something to send emails, something to keep track of our marketing stuff." And that led to another deep dive into um, CRMs as well. So that's where I came across HubSpot, and I brought up HubSpot and another option to our leadership, and they chose HubSpot. So um, now I'm also the de facto admin. So I'm here causing problems and solving them. Um, so that's basically where we're at. And now we're about a year into HubSpot, and trying to make it work better with our ERP. We've gone through a couple of iterations of trying to use the API to connect to our ERP, but the data model's not syncing right, and we're having a lot of problems doing that from the ARP. So we've decided to take a different approach at that point. So anyway, that's
Right.
basic background and up to now.
Yeah, I think that's a great overview.
Mhm.
Um, and if I could just take a minute and look back at when you first got there. Sounds like it's a combination of paper and spreadsheets, basically.
Yep.
And while it might have surprised you, I think most people might be surprised to know that, like, I'd say the majority of organizations, at least in the manufacturing space, are still, that's where they live, right? So, what was the mindset as far as, like, are we okay with that? Are we just living with it? Is it too painful to switch? Like, when you first got there, if you can think back to what the
Um,
conversation was.
it was just the way they've always done it. I mean, I know a lot of people who just do things because that's the way things have been done, and they don't want to even think about doing it differently because it works. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Um, but I found, I mean, the inconsistency for me particularly was I heard all of this talk about growth and all of this talk about wanting to be the best, and what we were doing was not going to get us to where we wanted to be. So that inconsistency for me was uncomfortable for me because I'm like, I can see the potential here, and I can see that what we're doing is kind of holding us back. So let's start trying to shift things. The conversations to shift um, weren't horrible because we were coming from all of us were coming from, okay, we know we need to grow, um, and we haven't been as much as we want to. So let's reevaluate what's going on. And so I was given the opportunity to explore and figure out how to make things work better, faster, easier to bring new people on, and all of that. So we were put in the position to be able to scale.
So, how much, I guess, business software knowledge did you have at that point?
Not a whole lot, honestly. I come from mainly the um, website e-commerce admin world. Um, I'd been a programmer, front end programmer for a while in my early career, and I pick up things pretty quickly. Concepts is if I a couple exposures and I've got it. So it was very easy for me to learn what I needed to learn when I needed to learn it. So yeah, my actual background, my degree is in psychology, which
Okay.
helps a bit.
Yes,
But
it
I don't
does.
have I don't have like a specific, technology degree. I was all self-taught
Right. Yeah, that definitely helps when it comes to the human behavior change management piece of all this.
for sure.
Um, so, do you remember where you started when you looked into how you're going to either make the process more efficient or digitize it, or
Yeah.
where did you start there?
Um, for the first things that I was working on was to try to streamline the order processing, and that I knew how to do that because I'd done e-commerce websites before. Um, and I tried to take that experience and put it into what we were doing. Um, so I eliminated some um, duplicate entering by basically hooking up our website to our accounting software. At that point, it was QuickBooks. So when we put in an order, because we do a lot of parts orders for repairs, so those orders would just go in. Like you'd manually enter the orders in the website, and that would transfer over to our accounting software. So usually we'd have to enter it we'd have to fill out a form, and then that form would have to go to ops, and then ops would fill that form, take the information on that form and put it into the accounting software. So it was multiple steps, multiple points where data could be entered improperly. So I started eliminating that, and then when the ERP came into play, orders would just flow from e-commerce right in there. And then we were still having a little bit of manual process with the sales team. But they're the B2B side. We also have commercial side, commercial and consumer side. So when it came to the sales team sending orders in, it was still a pretty manual process, but at least we've eliminated like multiple points of entry. So there's only two instead of, at one point there were 3 or 4.
Right.
So
So
yeah.
I imagine at that point the ERP replaces QuickBooks, right?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Were you like, at which point did you know, or what were the triggers to say like, okay, QuickBooks is not the tool we should be using here?
When I was looking for that inventory management piece, I found that a lot of the systems that I was looking at had the accounting piece as well to it, which makes sense. So it really was, if we're going to do this with inventory management, we have to also move our accounting. So the accounting department was fine with that. So, and from what I know, it's worlds better than just working in QuickBooks, because now you can see everything having to do
Right.
with the back of the house. So
Yeah. Okay. I think that's often the case. There's an inventory management initiative
yeah,
that causes that transition. So you bring the ERP in. Is sales coming into the ERP to do anything
no,
at that point? Okay.
it was very loudly stated that sales was not going to be in the ERP.
Right.
Although this ERP has some sales capabilities, we did not pursue
They all
those.
say that. Yeah.
Yes.
What was the um who was saying that loudly
um,
and why?
Leadership was, and mainly because they just didn't want the well, the technology piece is challenging for some of our team, and which is fine. I mean, that's normal for a lot of sales teams. So they didn't want them to accidentally do something or see something they shouldn't. And on top of that, I didn't like their sales integrations, sales tools.
Right.
They're an ERP. They're inventory and accounting. They did not do the sales piece well. So it would not have been a good experience for the sales team to be in there either.
Right. Yep. And that's where I think like it makes sense to me, and this is where a lot of companies run into challenges because like when you talk about how like it made sense to replace QuickBooks because if we're doing inventory here, then we can do like accounting, and now it just gets better. Like those two things are like non-human data, right? So it makes sense that because it can do inventory well, it probably does accounting well also, and
Mhm.
that the experience for those users are good. But then when we talk about sales and customer related stuff, the assumption that it can also do that well, I think is where a lot of companies run into challenges. So it sounds like the sales team is sending emails to you presumably to
Yep.
input orders. Is this where Shopify comes into play a little bit, or is it
Um,
already in play?
Shopify is in play after we implemented the ERP. We found that we were on WooCommerce and WordPress. I was finding the admin very time consuming because I was also the web admin.
Yep.
Um, so um, I also recommended, again, our goal is to be the best in our space and our goal is to grow. And in order to do that, the e-commerce side was kind of dragging a bit, mainly because of again, the maintenance, the connections to our ERP were fine, and workable, but being able to kind of take part of the maintenance off of my plate was important at that time. So because again, Shopify is pretty much the standard, one of the standards in e-com right now. Again, I put it towards the leadership. Hey, we want to be the best. Let's get the best tools. So let's go and, I recommend we do Shopify. We've dabbled a little bit in Shopify at that point with some single product sites. So we were familiar, everybody was familiar with it. I'm like, why don't we just move it all? And, it'll be a better experience, not only for admin, but our customers as well. So we went ahead and did that move after we did the ERP.
Okay. It's amazing how those experiences are linked, like the admin experience and the customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
But we won't dive further into that. So at how long had the ERP been in play when HubSpot entered the picture?
So the ERP was in place for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. We have been having issues with our then CRM / marketing platform. It was Infusionsoft at the time. It's called Keep now. So it wasn't like we weren't able to run a quick report as to how many people in this state bought this particular piece of equipment. And we were starting to run into, we could possibly do it on our ERP, but it wasn't, sales oriented on the ERP. It's, product oriented. So linking up the states with the products wasn't exactly very easy. So, we were starting to explore what kinds of data we wanted to be able to pull with regards to our sales, and not just our e-com sales, but our B2B sales as well. So since we couldn't really do that with Keep, we just needed something else to work through those data pieces. So that, in addition to the marketing team's pain with just dealing with a system that wasn't as robust as they wanted it to be, that kind of drove us to start looking for something else. So I was also tasked with research, found a few different systems, and narrowed it down to 2. HubSpot was one, Zoho was the other. And again, the same conversation came up. We want to be the best. We want to grow. We we want to have the best systems in place in order to help us scale. Zoho's fine. It does what it does, and it does it well. My issue with Zoho is that, number one, it feels like a copycat, so it's always going to be catching up. And it's geared towards a smaller business, and I think it's also geared towards like not the US.
Okay.
So that aside, it would have been a perfectly serviceable system, but again, going off of our conversations where we want to be the best and we want to grow as best as we can, again, we want the best systems in place in order to help us grow. HubSpot won out pretty clearly, even though the pricing was a lot more than Zoho would have been. It was pretty much a no-brainer because of the extensibility of the system, of everything that we could do, all the information that we could bring. And even then, like back when I was researching this in December of 22, I didn't know a fraction of what I know now. And even then, so much has happened, so much in HubSpot, and the ecosystem has grown and just exploded. Yeah. So I didn't even know the extent of the things that we could do back then. But there was always this feels like the system that will help us get to where we need to go, even though we don't know everything that we can do in it yet.
Right. Yeah, and that's been my experience as well. Like if you could just trust that everything that could be meant by grow better, the tagline, that they mean it and they try to execute on it every day. Like that's like you log in the next day and all of a sudden something's there that you've been wanting. It's because everybody else is in the same shoes and everybody's trying to grow better. And I think for anybody listening or watching, like a note to take here is through all of this, Alexia has been tying this to the goal of growth and being the best. And if you're struggling with change as an admin or in any of this, constantly linking it back to the business goal is one of the only ways you're going to get what you want. Now the trick and the talent comes in like how you explain how it impacts that goal or how it makes that goal possible. But that's been something interesting to hear from you, and I definitely applaud you for that. So you've had HubSpot since December 2022, or
we were fully in it. Everybody was in it in April 2023.
Okay. So you've got some e-commerce experience at that point. You've seen QuickBooks. You've now been in Zohosoft. As you entered the HubSpot universe, can you talk about anything that you thought was different?
Right from the beginning, HubSpot felt like a community more than a piece of software, because not only the Academy, which I dove in right away the minute we decided on HubSpot, and learned all I could with the Academy, and everybody on LinkedIn and Sprocketeer, and it just felt like there was a very concerted effort to not only provide some software that can help pretty much any business grow, but help the people who are working in it get the information they need and be able to apply it to their instances, and also offer more learning opportunities than I've found with any piece of software. It just felt a bit more like they were invested in my success, and not just here's the sale, we're done. Here's some knowledge base articles, have fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty on point. And that's where I think it's a good segue into why we even want to create a balance in the first place between HubSpot and the ERP or HubSpot and other business systems, at least to the point where we know which systems are doing what and why we're asking these systems. So as you've experienced HubSpot and seen it work in the organization, versus what you've been able to do with ERP, like what kind of either challenges or insights have you had just seeing those systems work and how your teams can work, with those systems?
So because HubSpot has the ability to basically do anything we need it to do with regards to the customer facing side, I've brought in our ops team, our order processing team into HubSpot. For all closed deals, they can grab the information and do what they need with it. So because it's such an easy system to learn and to work in, it was super simple to bring in ops to work here as well. So they still work in the ERP because we don't have that connection right now. And our challenge going forward is to eventually hook the two systems up. I think with the developments that are coming out now with the orders object, that might be a way to go. But we still have to see. So I'm optimistic. We have had a few snafus, but I know that with HubSpot's commitment to continuing to grow, and I know that if I, task our developers over at Zohosoft to do something, as long as they have the right documentation, as long as we have the right communication, making sure that it's working the way we say we want it to work and not how they think it's supposed to work, then we can definitely make it work. Right now, probably not so much, but that's gonna be the challenge right there. With working in Zohosoft, it it does what it does without a whole lot of frills, and it does it well. You know, um, we've had way more visibility into our inventory than we've ever had, um, and our accounting is light years easier. But there's still some challenges wherever you go, and there's always shifts and changes that you need to make. But I think we've got a pretty decent relationship with the two at the moment, even though it's not 100% integrated. But that's something to work towards.
Yeah, I think so. And it sounds like if I could just draw the insight here on the
Mhm.
approach, it's that like each organization, is going to have their processes and, their set of people that have a lot of, tribal knowledge and understanding of how it needs to work inside the business. And the last thing you should want to do is kind of let a vendor, come in and tell you how your process should work. I think it's fair to rely on them for like best practice advice, but I think we are where we are because we've let vendors do that, including HubSpot, kind of override or say we're just going to do it this way because this is how the system works, and not considering how the process needs to work. And I think orders are going to be a good example because, as you described, like if the order team is in HubSpot because it's easier for customer facing activity and communication than the old world of doing orders first outside of HubSpot, doesn't necessarily make sense. Not that we're not putting orders over there, because we still need to know what to make and how much we have on the shelf and when and how to make it. So the ERP is still going to do those things. But if we have this whole customer facing team and internal customer process happening in HubSpot, like, can we at least consider, creating the order there first and then sending the information the other way? So it sounds like am I right in that that's your approach in terms of, hey, we've got two systems we trust, but ultimately our processes needs to drive the innovation
Absolutely.
to some extent, right?
Hmm.
Cool. So what have you you recently shared that a recent episode I did made you want to retake the reinvest in some time in the RevOps Bootcamp
Yep.
because you know more now. What take us through the first time and then what you hope to get out of the second time.
Yeah. So first time was my first real exposure to what RevOps was. I had been in HubSpot for maybe a couple of months at that point. So our data wasn't, we didn't have enough data in the system. I didn't know how to really do a good report. I was, not really knowledgeable enough to be able to apply everything I was learning in RevOps Bootcamp to our business. So this time around, I know a lot more about uh, what kind of information is flowing in, what kind of information we want to get out, and how I want to help our sales team and how I want to help our business grow with HubSpot and RevOps. So I've been implementing some RevOps styles type um, initiatives in the company, but I think going through it again with my acquired knowledge, you know, when I first took it, it was like, okay, I have to make stuff up because I don't know all the things that they're asking me about.
Yeah.
Um, so this time around, I know a lot more, and I think that taking it again with the knowledge that I have now, I'll be able to make better recommendations and do be able to apply those learnings a lot more and a lot more effectively to what we're dealing with right now in the company.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great approach and thought process there. And I think the takeaway, as we wrap today, like you've definitely been on a journey where you knew next to nothing about things you were asked to help with. And I think a lot of admins are in that spot. And I hope admins and leaders, who might be watching or listening understand, like, one, it's the importance of continuing education, just because what you knew then is much different than what you know now. And how might the processes change, or how might the systems be able to change just based on that foundation that has been created through experience? And understand that the risk that you might take when you're asking somebody to do something that they've never done before for like a business critical, setup of software or systems. It's good that you guys were in a place to be able to kind of crawl, walk, run approach it. But definitely the understanding that it's a long journey and always evolving, and that uh, learning a little bit every now and then is always going to be a help. So
Absolutely. Yeah,
uh,
and it also helps if you have an open leadership team that allows you to do the research and learn as you're doing it. So I'm super grateful for being in a position like that.
right. No, I definitely agree. And thank you so much for coming on today and
Always happy
sharing
to.
your story. And if there's other admins out there, even leaders, like, listen to this and find that opportunity, and let's grow. Have a great day, everybody.